Hello and welcome to another Whiskey Review with me, the Whiskey Novice. Thank you for joining me for review number 224. Just when you thought it was safe to come back in the Whiskey War, boom, I'm back again. Here we are. Thank you for joining me for review, as I said, number 224. And this time we're looking at Loch Lomond Distillery Edition number 2. This one, a 5-year-old blend. And a 5-year-old blend, a strange 5-year-old blend. So let's explain what makes it strange and how do we explain where Loch Lomond's involved. I haven't had one of these in a while. We have a
Michael Henry moment.
Yes, a Michael Henry moment. And in this case, Michael himself, when I contacted him, said probably you would require a Michael Henry hour rather than a Michael Henry moment. There are an awful lot of details around this 5-year-old blend from Loch Lomond. I'm not going to deep dive into everything that Michael's actually told me because, well, for one, the text he sent me, a lot of it's actually it's cut off the edges. Cut off the edges it has, so it's actually very hard to read some of it, unfortunately. But thank you very much for sending it through, Michael. One of the things about this, which I sort of had a feeling anyway, and this is, get this, newbies, if you're new to whiskey, this will throw you a curveball. So this is a blended Scotch. You will see on it, actually, well, in fairness, it says 5 years old, small batch bottling, Distillery Edition number 2, single distillery peated blend. It doesn't actually say blended Scotch on it, but what you would generally be looking at and what this technically is a blended Scotch. What's a blended Scotch? Well, a blended Scotch is when you're looking at a blend of malt whiskey and grain whiskey, and generally you're looking at 2 distilleries. And there's a reason you're looking at 2 distilleries, because simply at this time, early 2024, I could be wrong, but I still think you're looking at 1 distillery in Scotland who can make an in-house blend. Loch Lomond. Any other blends are generally a blend of malt from 1 distillery and a grain from another distillery, because in Scotland, as with, well, I was going to say with most, but generally you'll find in Scotland most grain distilleries are still just that. They're a grain distillery. They're not actually making malt whiskey. They're there to make, for the purposes of making grain whiskey. And what is grain whiskey? Well, generally grain whiskey, when we're talking about grain whiskey in Scotland, it's any other grain that isn't barley. So this is where the curveball comes in, because in this case, and Michael told me this is actually what, and as Michael describes it, and I think it describes it very well. So both the malt and grain portions of this are malted barley. They're 50 ppm or ppm, phenolic parts per million malted barley. So how's it then a blend? Well, it's because the grain, the single grain element in this, and this one, as I say, really is for any newer to whiskey people out there. The grain element of this, what's called the grain, is because it was ran through column stills and not pot stills. So that's another law behind grain whiskey. It's generally you're either looking at a grain that isn't barley, or something, or your cereal has been run through a column still. That's the case here. So as much as it's a blend of grain whiskey, which is malt ran through column stills, and malt whiskey, pot stills, it's still considered a blend of grain and malt. Whew. Man, I confused myself almost. I do know the meaning in my head, but it's so look, grain distillery 100%, 50 ppm, barley distilled in continuous, and you know, I think I've went deep enough there without actually deep diving right into what Michael has sent me. But thank you very much, Michael, for the Michael Henry moment. Thank you for the information, as always. A superstar. Anybody who, once again, new to whiskey, who's Michael Henry? He's the master blender with Loch Lomond and a friend to the community. A lovely guy, super guy. So let's get into this, shall we? I've messed around long enough talking about it. Might as well get in there. Might be 5 years old. once again, it's elements of it that are 5 years old. I know there's older whiskey. Michael told me there's older whiskey in this. Generally, there is. So it's the youngest whiskey which sets the age statement. In this case, 5 years. Bottled at 57.7%, non-chill filtered, no colour added, as we expect with most sort of special offerings like this. This one limited to 300 bottles. It's nice and sweet. Weirdly, this one this is the peated, as I said, 50 ppm, which generally we would consider quite high or high-ish. It doesn't, smoke is not the first thing that comes across. There's a nice, it's a nice, slightly grainy sweetness. There's actually a nice vegetative, even slightly savoury note, just ever so slightly. But I think it's more from the grain element of things. When I say the grain element of things, the cereal, the malt itself, the barley, that's what's bringing that across. The fact that it's cask strength, 57.7%, completely hidden. You would not know it in the nose. This does not fight you in any way, shape, or form. Now that smokiness, slight smokiness is coming through. Not even coming through. It's becoming more settled, and it is becoming it's becoming that peated malt that it is. It's becoming that peated blend that it is. And it's weird. There's there's notes in this, a nice smokiness, a slight barbecue-y smokiness, but it's a slight one. It reminds me of standing outside a restaurant that's barbecuing, and you can just smell it no more. The door's just opened, and you get a waft of this. It's relatively, yes, there's fruity notes. Yes, it's bright. It's slightly. There are sweeter, sharper notes on the nose, but it doesn't like to give an awful lot out. So we're going to have to go into the palate to see if I can get a little assistance with what's going on in this. Let's launch it. There's that 57.7%. This is nice. It's clean. Slightly sweet and sour arrival. Drier than I imagined. Sweet, yes. Warm, hot, but malty, sweet maltiness, good sweet malt again. This is really nice, actually. I'm having it. This is one of those bottles that I tend to have a slightly different experience with every time I go in there. The smokiness is always there. That peated, that 50 ppm malt and grain, always there. But they never. This wouldn't be one that's a big peat monster by any means. It's just there and no more. There are fruity notes, but it's the dryness of this. It's the cleanliness of it. It's a strange kind of mouthfeel in that there's not really an oiliness with it. There's not really a creaminess with it. It's not thin. So that's the thing. It's still coats, but it's not. It's neither is it effervescent. It's a slightly powdery, grainy. I'm going to say grainy. I mean. Like a graininess on the palate. Any smokiness, very slight, right at the back. Fairly short finish, clean once again. So there's no, it doesn't hang around. It's not claggy. It's sort of, neither is it poof and gone, as we say. There's enough of it hangs around to make it pleasant. It's a strange one to call this. Now the thing about it is, here's the thing about it. 300 balls, Very limited. Very limited. Cask strength, 57.7%, non-chill filtered, no colour added. Yes, it's only a 5-year-old blend. This was, I can't remember, I think it was £45. 45. Something in the back is screaming £40, but I think it was 45. I can't remember what exactly I paid for it. This is gone now, as in, you'll not find this on their website anymore. Do you know, that is cheap as chips for what it is. That's what makes this... Honestly, there's a part of me that's shouting inside my head saying that if this was crap, for £45, it would still be good crap. But it's not crap. Forgive my language, forgive my foulness, but it's one of those things. This is actually a good whiskey. £45. 45. Oh, nice little sweet. It's tender. It's one that doesn't. It's not loud and shouty and trying to be something that it isn't. It's just a nice little blend. Being an in-house distillery, as I said, they can do malt, they can do grain, they can make blends. There are quite a few celebrity blends out there that come from Loch Lomond. You maybe don't know this. You maybe don't know them. You don't, because some of them may say on the label that Loch Lomond produced them. Some of them might not. They don't have to. But they're all good. That's the thing. I've had a few of them and they've all been very, very good. Why? Why is this? Because Loch Lomond make good whiskey. It's that simple. They make affordable whiskey. They've got a man at the helm of the blending unit here who knows what he's doing. That's not me just saying that because he's a friend. It's because he knows what he's doing. And I think if you're in the whiskey community, you already know this. I don't need to tell you that. I didn't go in there and nose again. The smokiness sort of came straight away. Slight soapy note off it. The palate is a bit strange. As I said, it goes very dry. Finish doesn't change much. Actually, most of the experience with the drop of water doesn't change an awful lot. I could probably add more water. I won't for now. All I'm going to say is, look, for that price, this is fantastic. If you put it in those terms, for what I paid for this is fantastic. It's not the best. It's certainly not the best of the distillery editions. I've had them up to date, and I will review them going forward. I've already reviewed number 1. I'll throw a link for it up there somewhere. But for what you pay for this, or if you manage to get your hands on it for what you paid for it, it is fantastic. That's the way I'll leave it. That's the way. Would I replace it? Can't. Gone. At that price, if this was something that was sort of core range from Loch Lomond, of course I would have replaced it. Of course I would. 45 quid for this quality. All day long. All day long. So, right, as I said, can't say it enough, can't repeat myself enough, for what I paid for it. Amazing, fantastic. Not brilliant, not a great whiskey, not amazing whiskey by any means, but for that price, fantastic. So what would I recommend then as an alternative? Look, I've went straight back in with the Inchmone, the 12-year-old from Loch Lomond. I'm not going to lie to you. These are quite different. But if you didn't manage to get your hands on this and you want to feel for peated Loch Lomond whiskey, good, inexpensive, affordable peated Loch Lomond whiskey, the Inchmone, it's still a good whiskey. They are different. There's a different 12-year-old single malt, the Inchmone, of course, for a start, but there's a different feel to them, peated wise. But it's very difficult. I found it very difficult to find an alternative for this that would be on that same path. Is it like the the peated single grain from Loch Lomond. No, it's not. It's better than that, in my opinion. This is quite considerably better than that. This 5-year-old blend, but it's just, I mean, it could probably, actually, you could probably look at even the likes of Glen Scotia for an alternative for this 5-year-old blend. But for me, if you want just if you couldn't get your hands on this and you've never had a feel for Loch Lomond peated whiskey, well then I'm going to cop out easy and just say pick up a bottle of the Inchmore. It's not expensive for what it is, so it's always worth trying. There you go. Really don't think I could say an awful lot more about that. It's not fantastic. I wouldn't lie to you and say this is the best whiskey in the world. As I said, it's not even the best of the distillery editions they've released yet, by quite some measure. But for what they charged for, I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe what you got for your money in this. So well played, Loch Lomond. And it is a good whiskey. Leave it at that. Move on. Say thank you very much for joining me. As always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much to my patrons. Should anybody wish to join that group, the details are in the video description below. I'll be back next time with something different, similar, I don't know, can't remember. Until then, look after yourselves. Here's to your good health. Cheers. Hey, thanks for watching my video. Please click and subscribe to be notified of further content.